3.
Yummy like a gummy bear.
It's the internet, you're busy. Let's do this for July 24th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, EA Big is dead, but that's not stopping the universe from giving us a new NBA Street successor. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host at Game Mess Mornings. It's Lex Luddy, everybody. Lexi, how are you doing?
I never have to play Yakuza Dead Souls again. I'm done. I'm free.
We'll find some reason to make it happen. We'll get in there.
Yeah, I've gotten into streaming.
How's that been going?
It's been going good. It's been fun. I got like a setup that lets me play shoot PS3 games, we'll call it. And turns out Yakuza Dead Souls is really bad. Like, I've seen like some of the community try to rehabilitate that game as like, no, it's underrated. Like, no, it just controls like shit. It's just miserable.
Is that the zombie one?
Yes, it is. That's
when I remember I was like trying to figure out what's going on with that series. And that might have been still when I was reading a magazine or something or on a website. And they're like, and the next Yakuza is going to be about zombies. I'm like, what is that series? Seems like it fell off. I was thinking it was like the next mainline one. I'm like, oh, they're like desperate over there. I didn't realize they were just doing something stupid. I think that was before, though, that team figured out their area of expertise when it became to making stupid games. I think they didn't have their footing yet.
There was a lot of that on stream that we found where you could tell that they hadn't figured this out for the West, especially because even things like the localization, one of those things where, you know, in the modern games when they say, you know, Kiryu-san or Kiryu-chan, they just leave it like that because they know you know what that means. In this, they have like Mr. Kiryu every time someone says Kiryu-san. Yeah. Okay. And it's like, guys, come on.
Oh, boy.
Okay. But yeah, also you make kills whenever you get kills, which is really good.
That's really good, actually.
Yeah, it's a really good localization. That game just controls really poorly. They keep some of the face buttons for the fighting things, but then put all the shooting on the shoulder buttons. But also it has tank controls like Resident Evil 4, but not on the right stick, on the left stick.
Oh boy.
Yeah, aiming in that game fucking feels atrocious. And I'm glad I played it. I'm glad I experienced it.
Oh, yeah.
Was it worth the €50 I paid for that copy of the game? Probably not.
Well, is it controls atrociously, for my needs, for my purposes, is it bad enough for Blight Club? Could I hurt Dan Reichert or Mike Minotti with this game? Is it on that level?
I think Dan would hate it because, one, it's all in Japanese and the story's way worse than the previous stories, so it's just less easy to be engaged in. And the boss fights are pretty miserable.
People in chat are saying too long, and that ship has sailed. All right?
It's 11
After Daikatana?
It's 11 hours. It's not that long, is how long I beat it in. The problem is, it's not that difficult. It's just very dull. It's just very boring and unengaging. And then there's some really bad boss fights. Apart from that, it's fine. I only died like 5 times.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, doesn't sound painful enough. I'm looking for that really juicy, terrible game that can make these guys question their entire existence. Because that's where I'm at with Daikatana right now. And I got to play that game today. So not feeling great.
Well, I tell you what, I'll be plumbing the depths with more PS3 games while I have this setup going. So Stranglehold is up today. I'm going to be playing that in about 2 hours. So that is a good game. I do know that as a fact. But I have like a list of PS3 games that I want to explore. Because that is a console that was like very important to me. Yeah. That was a console that was very important to me when I was younger, but I also wasn't tuned in to the games industry enough to know what the good or bad games were. So I just kind of played what I got. So I'm very excited to like play some real B games.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I should create a we should list, which is because, I'm like, we should do this. And every time I say that, I should just turn around and put it onto Notion or something and keep track of a list, because that stuff doesn't stick in my head. That's the reason I'm always saying these things.
I do that with every game that like I put time into during the year. Like for when Game of the Year comes around, I'm like, I won't remember everything.
Yeah, I try
that I
to do
otherwise.
that. Yeah, I always fall off on that. That's bad at keeping habits. The good ones, anyhow. Yeah, I over here I am. And if you can't tell, there's not a lot of news happening, so we're just hanging out for a little bit. I'm still just all in on Nintendo World Championships, really enjoying that. I got it from the outside as someone who certainly didn't grow up with the NES generation. What does it look like to you, what we're doing over here? Just super boomer shit, or do you kind of get it, or what's up?
I would get it more if it wasn't like so facially flawed in the ways that it's facially flawed. Like even I'm looking at that, and like I get it because I love speedrunning. I love watching speedruns. Games Done Quick is like the highlight of my year every time it comes around, twice a year. And so like I totally get it. I get that drive. Could not be me chasing leaderboards, but I understand it. And I think that they picked like a good batch of games for the most part. There's some of them where I'm like, I don't think anyone under the age of 30 has ever thought about Balloon Fight, you know?
Oh, they shouldn't. Definitely not.
Yeah. There's some of those where you're like, oh, this is just for the crowd that grew up with this.
And barely so when it comes to something like Balloon Fight. Balloon Fight is one where I never had much love for it. Then I play it here and I get kind of good at it for the speedrunning challenges. And I'm like, okay, there's something. For me, Balloon Fight was always Iwata taking mechanics from Balloon Fight to fix the swimming in Super Mario Brothers. And I'm like, oh, I love that idea of him just being like, hey, yeah, I have a solution for you. You need to figure out swimming. Now we have this mechanic over here. Let's just adjust it, make it better. It's way better in Super Mario Brothers when you're swimming. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's what Balloon Fight was to me, like this prototype for other games. Then I play it and get kind of understand the really bespoke movement system, and that is fun. I'm glad that this game is facilitating that. And then I'll play Ice Climber. Kid Icarus is like, it's not great, but it's more, I don't know, I think it's more dull than anything. Ice Climber is straight up bad though. That one's I find very frustrating because you can't, some jumps you think you're going to make and you just fall basically right through the platform because you're on the edge or whatever. And it's like, you should cheat in the opposite direction as a game designer every time, of make me feel like, if I feel like I'm going to make the jump, I should definitely make the jump. And they're like, no, you got to get like both feet and the third invisible foot up on the platform. Okay, whatever. All right, we should explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, look at the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Mario plus Rabbids director David Soliani leaves Ubisoft after 25 years. This is from Ollie Reynolds at Nintendo Life. David was probably maybe how you say it. Soliani.
David.
Yeah.
David, maybe?
David? Yeah, that's probably even better. David Soliani, the creative director of Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle and its sequel, Sparks of Hope, has announced that he has left Ubisoft after 25 years. Posted on social media, the announcement states, after 25 years, 11 of which beautifully spent working with Nintendo on Mario plus Rabbids. Man, that's crazy. It's like, it feels like, oh yeah, he just did those, and that is almost half of his career. Along the company of incredible community players, I've decided to leave Ubisoft to embark on a new adventure. Soliani does not confirm what this new adventure might be, but we're excited to see what the creator will get up to in the coming months. He is perhaps best known around these parts for his emotional reaction to the reveal of Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle at E3 2017, during which Shigeru Miyamoto took to the stage alongside Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot. When Miyamoto referenced Soliani directly, the camera captured the director's emotional response in the audience. That was one of the better E3 moments for sure. People move on. I'm not too surprised. Likely something in this, somebody in this situation is like, I got to do these two games with this company I really love, and we weren't going to get to make a third. and I could go in there and try to pitch something new, but I've been doing this for so long. Is that really what I'm interested in? A 25-year career with one company, it seems natural at a certain point to be like, no, I'm moving on. I'm trying something different, but a good run, right?
And in many ways, he does seem like one of the few people who's gone bigger than Ubisoft in a lot of ways, or
Yes.
bigger. He doesn't have to be a part of these mammoth development groups that Ubisoft has. Like you see, Clint Hawking has kind of disappeared into the background of this. I think he's probably realized, like, hey, I'm friends with all these different composers. I have a good relationship with Nintendo. I could go out and do my own thing. And people, even though that second game didn't sell well, people like it a lot. Which if you're starting a new company or you're joining up somewhere new, that's what they're looking for is, did you make a good game previously? Because then we feel like we could maybe sell the next thing that you work on. So yeah, I think he will definitely like keep making games. He seems to love it, and he seems to love making games of that sort of style, like that, like blue sky optimistic thing. And I think he was a really good like creative lead. I think he was a really good face for Ubisoft, which is a company that doesn't have many faces other than Yves Guillemot, who in
is a
recent
heel,
years,
not a face.
Yeah, has really become like less manic pixie CEO that everyone used to like put up with him for.
Right.
So,
and really, like, we don't need Yves Guillemot. I'm not allowed to do an impression anymore because it's insensitive or whatever. Come on, everybody, let me have my fun. I'm joking.
It's fine. He's a billionaire.
Exactly. I think he'll be able to handle it. And I think it's mostly a deference to the French. I get it. I think that I will keep following Davies Soliani wherever he goes because of like, someone that cares that passionately that they are tearing up because Shigeru Miyamoto is talking about this game they've been working on so long. It just gets me, and I want to like back up people like that and be like, hey, yeah, I'll show up for your stuff if you're going to continue to have that kind of passion. So yeah, good luck to him. But we do have breaking news, and I don't know if you saw this in chat, Lexi.
I think I'm seeing the repercussions of it in chat.
I am reeling over here. Okay, let's just read the headline from Variety.
Okay, sure.
Skibidi toilet film and TV franchise is in the works from Michael Bay and Adam Goodman. They have apparently an interview with these human beings about this. As if it wasn't ubiquitous enough as digital video shorts or games, Skibidi Toilet may be headed for a future as long-form content as well. The controversial animated internet sensation is being... It's controversial?
Controversial.
Is it controversial? Is it really? Controversial animated internet sensation is being developed for TV and film treatment by director Michael Bay and former Paramount Pictures president Adam Goodman, who sat last week for an exclusive interview about their plans for Skibidi on the latest episode of Variety's Strictly Business podcast.
Just Skibidi. It's the grimdark reboot.
The Skibidi universe. Oh my God. We are absolutely in talks right now, both on the television side and the earliest conversations right now on the film side. But it's not a be-all, end-all for us, Goodman said. What is okay? Whatever. Goodman is even presenting migrating Skibidi IP to TV or film as an option, as a testament to the audience size of the property has amassed on YouTube and Roblox, where the monetization opportunity is ample. As a new Variety
that this is tied to Roblox and not Gary's mod.
Like, it's
also
just weird
Skibidi
situation
IP. It's not owned by anyone. It's fucking like, who owns Skibidi? What IP is there?
Okay, yeah, right. The Skibidi toilet himself, the asset, is a combination of the toilet from Half-Life and I don't know.
Man, right?
Yeah, it might be. God, I honestly can't. I'm looking at this fucker. I can't tell which character it is anymore. But a character that Valve ostensibly owns. And then the Skibidi song, I thought, was a real song that exists and someone made, and then they just combined these two things into a meme video. Now, since that first video of, and if people don't know what we're talking about, which I gotta remember, of course, well, the only reason I know about Skibidi Toilet is because I think it's funny as a 41-year-old to be paying attention to what, like, Gen Alpha is fucking talking about, because I think it would be annoying to them. That's the reason I know about Skibidi Toilet. Skibidi Toilet is a video on YouTube, originally on YouTube, a YouTube short, where a head from like Gary's Mod and from Valve, from the Source Engine, pops out of a toilet and sings Skibidi, a song, like go Skibidi dee dee dee, Skibidi da 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 da, that sort of thing. I think it's funny, and also like, okay, whatever. Since then, though, since this first video, which has like billions of views, I think it's massively popular. There is a long series of sequel shorts that expands on this universe into like epic and galactic battles of the Skibidi Toilet, mini Skibidi Toilets fighting enemies that have like security cameras for heads, and then there's giant Skibidi Toilets that are on the backs of tanks. There's like flying Harrier jet Skibidi Toilet cousins that fire rocket missiles, and they turn into giant mech battles. It is already very Michael Bay coded. So I get how this happens. I just don't get how any of the rights issues make sense. Like, is Valve involved? I suppose we could like hope, like, I guess I could listen to this. This just came out, but I mean, I'll read a little bit more. On February 7th.
Valve is not mentioned in the article.
Yes, right, exactly. Yes, on February 7th, 2023, Alexei Gerasimov uploaded an 11-second video to his YouTube channel, Da Fuck Boom, which has way more views than like properties like Detective Comics, Jurassic World, Marvel, Star Wars, and all this other stuff, called Skibidi Toilet, which featured a head emerging from a toilet and singing. Little did he know that. Did he know it? But then a 23-year-old from the former Soviet Republic of Georgia had launched a genuine cultural phenomenon. Like they're not talking about how any of this like makes sense from a rights standpoint, but I do believe that Hollywood could figure that stuff out, and I don't think even Valve would stand in the way too much. They would probably just want their piece if that's required, or maybe the whole thing gets treated as parody, and they find ways around that, and they have a different looking Skibidi Toilet that is like live action. Like what do you think any of this really is?
What I was going to say to you was, as I was scrolling through this Variety article, all the ads that were like littered around-ish, and all the related articles, because he's like the ish person at the moment, were just Glenn Powell. And so there was like an auto-playing video of Glenn Powell being interviewed, and I was like, oh, is Glenn Powell going to be Skibidi Toilet?
Put that fucker's head in a toilet right now, put it on a poster, and let's go to Hawaii, because that's $1 billion franchise right there. Yeah, I don't know what happened to us as a people. Like, where did we go wrong? It feels like a level beyond even like what's in Idiocracy. Like, Ow My Balls, I get to a certain extent. What's happening here, I guess it's like a new form of like Tom and Jerry cartoons, of just like violent, funny cartoons. Like, that's what this feels like at the end of the day. It just is so depraved in some ways.
I think the thing that like is actually depressing about this isn't what's mentioned in the article later on, is like, oh, people are like concerned about the moral decay of society and like brainwash for kids and all this. And it's like, no, Skibidi Toilet is fine. Like, it's a fucking dumb meme. What's terrible is $1 billion company like Platinum Dune going, you want to know what we're going to turn into a franchise? And it's like, fucking no, dude, no. No one...
It does feel like a joke out of a movie, though, like a kind of a low rent movie that's not trying very hard, of Michael Bay attached to direct Skibidi Toilet. Like, come on, that is in itself just kind of hilarious.
Like Trey Parker and Matt Stone would look at that and go, bit on the nose.
Yeah, exactly, right. So I don't know. I hope it happens. I want to see this. I have to see what this looks like.
Yeah, it is always worth remembering with these things. How many times have we seen articles on Variety of like fucking Space Invaders movie in development at wherever, and like that's in 2006 or something, and those things just never materialize. So we can hope that it doesn't actually come to pass, but it might.
I'm gonna get Sean, if you want to put the Stream Elements link into Slack again, I'll get yours, because I think Jan's out today. He's traveling. He's got to go to fucking San Diego. All right, we'll get that updated so we can get headlines in the show for everybody. Not that it matters because the headlines are going to be like this sort of bullshit today. That's just where we're at. Okay, Assassin's Creed Shadows devs address blowback over game's historical accuracy because we're still doing this. This is from Michael McWhorter at Polygon. Developers behind Assassin's Creed Shadows, the upcoming Assassin's Creed set in feudal Japan, released a statement on Tuesday that addressed blowback to the game, which seems to be largely driven by the inclusion of Yasuke, a black samurai, as one of 2 playable characters. In its statement, Ubisoft developers specifically addressed our Japanese players who have criticized the game for claimed historical inaccuracies and a flub that included Chinese subtitles and a video for Assassin's Creed Shadows. We acknowledge that some elements in our promotional materials have caused concern within the Japanese community, developers said in a statement. For this, we sincerely apologize. But developers at Ubisoft also stressed that while they have put significant effort into ensuring an immersive and respectful representation of feudal Japan, the developers also said their intention has never been to present any of our Assassin's Creed games, including Assassin's Creed Shadows, as factual representations of history or historical characters. Yeah, there's more to this. Well, I'll probably read a little bit more from the story, but it is buck wild to me that we are still having to explain that historical accuracy is always a bullshit criticism. Like 99% of the time, it's bullshit, especially for something like Assassin's Creed, where clearly you just pick and choose when to care about that, when you're mad for some other reason. And so fundamentally, what many people are upset about is there's a black guy in a game about Japan, and I associate Japan as being black free. And so you're upsetting that, and I'm mad about it. And so then Ubisoft is essentially apologizing for including a black character in their video game, and that fucking sucks. That's where we're at. I'm just kind of over this.
This is a real terrible precedent to set because it, one, shows no faith in your developers to actually be able to tell their own story, and 2, lends legitimacy to just the worst people, because they say here, you know, we're talking to our Japanese players. It's not the fucking, you'd go and you look at those fucking petitions. It's not Japanese people that are signing those petitions.
No.
You go and you look at the accounts that are stoking the most amount of furor over this, and it's like, it's fucking a guy called Greg from Cincinnati, who has the online handle Otaku Protector or some shit. And it's like, okay, great, like, you're basically... The thing with this whole thing that's, like, wild is that Yasuke, and I did a bunch of this research because I was writing about Assassin's Creed Shadows for Play Magazine, and that should come out, like, next month or something. But he's been in loads of games. He was in both of the Neo games. He's been in countless of the Samurai Warriors games. He's been in countless of the what are they called again?
Neo Turf Masters. Sorry, you said Neo, and now that's all I can think about.
Yeah. The Nonabu Ambition games. I can't remember the name of that. Yeah. But like, he has been in lots of these games, and like, you didn't have people coming out when fucking Neo was coming out being like, this isn't historically accurate, why are there demons here as well? It's the fact that he's playable, it's the fact that he's black, it's the fact that they don't want that in a major AAA game, and it's the fact that they're racist.
Yep.
And that's kind of ish.
And sexist, right? Because it's like, there is a Japanese person in the video game, but she doesn't count because she's a woman. Like, it's that simple as well.
And like, honestly, the biggest thing about this whole story for me is that this just sucks from the point of view of, okay, now you've like kowtowed to the worst people, so you don't support your devs in this thing.
Right.
You don't fully support them. You say you do, but you're not fully supporting them by like both sides in this whole thing. And you're also lending legitimacy to people who haven't been legitimate actors in this industry for decades. And that just seems like a really fucking stupid thing to do.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that this is a real terrible move. Like, when it comes to them putting Chinese subtitles on one of the videos, yeah, apologize for that. That's a fucking dumb move. Don't be like, well, there's debate as to how real this guy was. Like, there's debate about how real fucking any historical.
Yeah, there's debate about how real
figure was.
William Shakespeare is. Like, right, get the fuck out of here. Yeah.
Yeah. No historical document is 100%
Right,
like
that's crazy to me. Like, they're like, oh, I mean, there's just not a lot of evidence. There's not a lot of documents. It's like, yeah, no shit. They were busy with other stuff. They weren't writing everything down. Like, there was a little bit different time.
A whole lot of fucking paper to
right,
write shit
exactly.
down
They didn't just like
time.
go to Meyer and get a notebook and keep a journal. Like, go fuck yourself. Like, most people didn't have a journal. That was something reserved for like the very top of society across the entire fucking world at that time. Like, of course this is how it is. Like, yeah, but fundamentally, it's an Assassin's Creed game. Like, it's a fantasy. Like,
they fucking fought guards in the last 3. In the last 3, you fight guards at the end, and then you kill the guards.
And so, like, and so to like be in the situation where, look, I think including Chinese subtitles in a video meant for the Japanese audience, very bad look, and you should apologize for that. That one's rough. That feels like a lack of attention to detail that seems like you don't care. And so
do you want to know what could have solved that? If they had a consultant look at it first.
Well, no, because those are all corrupt companies that will destroy the industry. Of course, we can't have that.
Yeah.
So I think that them being on their heels in a situation like this, where it's like, hey, you have a game that does look pretty promising. You should kind of go be acting with confidence, get on your toes, and come out and say, here's why Yasuke rules. Here's why the entire game rules. Here's why the other character's great. That should be the focus, and not back on your heels trying to explain yourself to an audience that doesn't really want to change their mind.
They're never going to accept an apology. They don't want to
That's
accept
not what
an
this is about,
apology
yes.
because they're not angry that this isn't historically accurate. They're angry because they're racist, and you're not going to defeat racists with, well, actually,
no.
We're trying this and we're trying to do that. Like, no, they're just going to keep on being racist.
They are, yes, and that's like the explanation of, hey, we are making a game that's meant to be entertaining first, and historical accuracy is something that we play around in that space. This is an argument that is going to fall on not deaf ears, on troll ears. These are people who are literally just making any argument to troll the opposition, the people that they hate, so that they can kind of stir shit. They are just shit stirrers. And so to try to actually engage with them is a mistake 100% of the time. And Ubisoft falling into it is, it's not too surprising. Corporations do this all the time, but it's still a mistake. And they should not have done this. This is a dumb move. I'm feeling hopeful about Assassin's Creed Shadows. I have since that first trailer. I thought it looked pretty good.
I watched a bunch of it being played. It looks super promising. Compared to some of the other recent Assassin's Creed games, it looks like a good balance of like what people like from the old ones and the new ones.
Yep.
Like, that's the part that has me interested in it.
Yep. Also, Yasuke fucking is a great character. What a great inclusion in the game. I'm more excited because of it. And Ubisoft should embrace that.
There is a million games where you play as the standard like Japanese protagonist in those eras,
right? And it solves a problem of like, hey, you're like in this environment, and you might have questions about how it works, like the strata of society and all these things. And playing as a character that is a bit fish out of water is like a situation where things can be explained, questions can be asked, and it feels natural and makes sense. And then it's like, well, if we're going to do that, like, let's at least maybe do an interesting take on that. And that's Yasuke. Of course it is. So very, very excited about this game still. I'm going to make Dan play it. He loves Assassin's Creed. All right. Nintendo vacating team. Here's another fun one. Vacating Team Jackpot's win for Splatoon 3 World Championships. This is from Nintendo Everything. After a recent controversy, Nintendo will no longer be recognizing the win Team Jackpot had in the 2024 Splatoon 3 World Championship. The company put out a statement on social media which mentions that some members of Team Jackpot, quote, acted in a manner that is not in line with our community guidelines. And that means, the code word is there as, what they're actually trying to say is, they're super, super racist. They were doing some stuff, they had like conversations in a team chat that was just shockingly bad. And Nintendo, doesn't want to give a trophy to people like that. Weirdly.
Weird.
Yeah, and so due to this, their win will be voided, and they won't be getting trophies either. Nintendo will also adjust the Splatoon 3 splash tag banner that was released with a future patch, basically to remove any references to this team or whatever. I think that the esports scene it needs to remember that Nintendo doesn't fucking need you, and if you want a support, or not even support, if you want permission to run esports tournaments, like if you actually care about this thing that you're spending all this time on, you got to get right with God. Like you got to figure your shit out and like be a better person, because these corporations are not going to tolerate anything that tarnishes them in even like a little way, let alone a major way, like giving a trophy to a bunch of racist little kids. Like, come on.
Yeah, and like ultimately this happens with real sport too. We talk a lot about how some sport professionals don't get punished enough for their shitty actions, but if someone does act out enough, people will rescind trophies, they'll rescind medals, they'll not be able to sign a contract.
They took the Los Angeles Clippers away from its billionaire owner because of his racism. Like, they were just like, no, you're not allowed to own this team anymore. Fucking get Steve Ballmer in here. He's down. He's a cool dude. Everyone loves him. I mean, he's not racist at all. So let's have him in here. He's probably a little racist, Steve Ballmer. I have no idea.
And I think the actual lesson here is that, like, hey, wouldn't it be nice if other companies utilize the influence that they have over the esports that people play? Because you know what? The esports World Cup really fucking sucks. And there's a lot of companies that are just like, well, it's kind of out of our hands and we're just licensing the game and people can do whatever they want with it. And you know what? That's not fucking good enough. You own that IP. You do not have to let them play fucking Overwatch in Saudi Arabia to like try to whitewash the fucking blood-stained reputation of that country. You don't. So...
Yes, and it's Nintendo is just has a history of looking around the esports scenes and be like, I don't want anything to do with this. That's why they don't let Smash Brothers be used for the fighting game community anymore, because there were so many problematic issues with sexual harassment and sexual assault, and they were like, can only hurt us at this point. We don't want, like, as positive as a marketing beat it would be for Smash Brothers for it to be an Evo, and it would be, it's not worth it because we don't trust that community. And now it's like, even the ones that they have tight control over, like Splatoon, they are having similar issues. Now, Nintendo's clearly having a string of bad luck. This is not happening across the board in every esport event, but it's happening frequently enough that Nintendo might just be like, we're out, we're done. None of our games can be used for this stuff ever again. And the esports community really has no one to blame but themselves at a certain point, for not self-regulating, for not... like you mentioned, professional sports. Every professional sports team has, media handlers and media training involved, so that everyone recognizes that anything they say or vaguely think could be a problem for the team that is paying them a lot of money. Now, esports doesn't have that kind of money, so I get that, but it's also not going to get to that kind of money unless they sort of recognize the chicken and egg scenario here of, unless we are good ambassadors for this product that we are. That we exist within its ecosystem, we're screwed. And that's just how it's going to be if you're going to be playing a game that is a product as your esport, and not something that is a game like basketball where it's like, well, no one owns the IP of a round ball that you bounce and then a hoop that you put it in. Like, that is very different than going and playing Splatoon from Nintendo, where they make their money from people buying Splatoon, not from people buying tickets to watch people play Splatoon. So yeah, the esports community sort of has to have a reckoning here.
Yeah, and it's been like that for almost decades now, of people saying like, hey, like, you have to get your shit together, and it continues not to. And instead what you have is these big organizations that have been built up on the idea that at some point there'll be a gold rush. At some point, esports will make a profit. And they're desperate to make that profit, so they make a fucking deal with anyone. They'll make deals with literally anyone, and they'll promote anything, and they'll bend over backwards to make the people who are offering them money happy, because it's still just not profitable. And And so, yeah, I think like companies would be wise to keep a much keener eye on what's going on in their competitive scenes, because it reflects on them.
Yep. And yeah, it's let's see, someone in chat just said is it in the Olympics? Yeah, Abraham LinkedIn, which incredible name. Says, aren't esports in the Olympics now? Yeah, kind of. Saudi Arabia is like has some deal with the Olympic the International Olympic Committee to have
license out, basically license out the Olympic logos and name to say this competition is the Olympics. And also, like, that's not going to even work because they're going to run it every single year. And people are going to go, that's not the Olympics. The Olympics runs every 4 years, and it runs in the city that the Olympics is held in, not in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
It's the same way that, like, the fucking World Cup, Esports World Cup, the first rounds of that were going on in Saudi Arabia for, I think it was either Valorant or CSGO. And at its peak, it had the same amount of viewers as Game Zone Quick did on like an average night. It had like 40,000 viewers. I was like, no, like people don't just come to your thing because you say you're the World Cup. You have to prove it.
Yep.
And people don't want to be a part of that thing. You see it with, I think, like Overwatch announced their casters for the upcoming event, and there's not a single woman going to the Overwatch World Cup. And that esports scene has a lot of women involved in it who are casters, and so like it's instantly recognizable as like, oh yeah, weird, why wouldn't they want to be at that event? I wonder why.
Yeah, and it's I think overall that's where esports is kind of in a grim place where it's like, I guess we gotta go take this money from Saudi Arabia. I guess that's where we're at. No one else is giving us money. They have a lot of money and they're just gonna give it to us, but we can't have women. I guess we need the money. Like, it's like, oh, so that's where esports is at, not like these companies stopped investing in it that make the game, and so you're like turning around, looking around, and the shadowy government that has some cash is what you turn to. To me, that says it's over in most ways, and I think most people paying attention feel the same way, and they're like, oh, this doesn't feel organic. This does not feel driven by the community, and then it does not feel driven by the IP holder. It is something else, and it is something else when it comes to Saudi Arabia. They have diversification desires for their economy, and this is like one of the many things that they're trying. And so feeling like an also ran as part of some government strategy, and then having to make the sacrifices you have to make to get that cash, and have not a lot of other great things going on in that scene overall. It's a rough place to be in, and I think it's well covered territory with esports now. But yeah. In the meantime, Evo was great. There are clearly great examples, but that's the difference is the fighting game community has been there doing it themselves for a very long time, and that's what
like
it's
there's other ways to play games competitively. Like Game Zone Quick, a great article went up today. I think I know Ash Parrish retweeted it. I don't know who wrote it, but basically being like, hey, these events are safe for the whole community, they're supportive for the whole community because the people who run them are invested in making them safe spaces for everyone to attend. You know, they moved one of them out of Florida because they were like, yeah, some people might not feel super comfortable coming down to Florida, and we get that. So yeah.
Yep. All right, let's take a quick break. When we get back, got a handful more headlines to get into. We'll do that right after this. Boom, we are back. Let's get into it. Stylish looking basketball game with hand-drawn art revealed. Looks incredible. We talked a little bit about this on the Bombcast yesterday, but hey, let's get into a little bit deeper since we need headlines this week today. From Eddie McHugh at GameSpot, independent game developer Play by Play Studios has announced its formation and revealed its first project, which is a character-driven 3v3 basketball game that celebrates the sport and its culture. The Run Got Next is the name of the game, and it aims to be easy to pick up and play, but also deep enough for people looking for a challenge. The full court 3v3 game bends the rules of real basketball in the name of fun, but is not a full-on arcade-style basketball game. Take a look for yourself. There's a trailer that they're referencing here. Players assemble a roster of players, each with their unique movesets, with the aim of building a winning streak and holding court. The game has different courts to play on, and each favors a different type of play style. So with the referencing that, like the building the team thing, that is something from NBA Street, which this game is a successor to, where you can like play a team. At the end of the game, if you won, you get to pick a player from that other team to join your team. And they would be, each time there would be like probably someone a little bit better than your current roster. And that was fun. And you could see how, okay, that's something that you pairs really well with maybe a gameplay style of a roguelite, which this game is. So like you can imagine, like actually, instead of having slight improvements from one of these characters, maybe they could have really crazy passive abilities or really crazy active specials that you can do that would change up a lot of things about how you play. And I know they're talking about, it's not going to be super arcadey, so maybe it's a little bit more low key than that. But I just think that this is a really fundamentally good idea for a successor to NBA Street. That said, whenever these spiritual successors come up, I do remember that I don't know if there's been any a single one that I've truly loved in the way I love the original. And I always get my hopes up, and I'm doing it again. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because being disappointed, it doesn't really hurt you. It's fine to be disappointed. Just move on. But I don't know. Do you think I'm going to get hurt again here, Lexi?
I'm looking at that trailer now. It looks nice.
I think it looks competent, for sure.
It definitely looks like it has more budget and experience than something like, what's it called, Hoops 3-on-3 or whatever it is. That game that's like free to play and you see it everywhere on Steam. It doesn't look bad. I'd be curious to see what a roguelike sports game looks like. I know Tape to Tape did a bit of that.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that's an interesting combo, and basketball works well for that because those are pretty quick games, or they can be quick games, especially if it's like Street Battle or something. So it works well with the roguelike, format. So yeah, I'm interested in it.
Yes, and I'm a huge NBA Street Volume 2 fan. The whole series was good, but Volume 2 was it was an all-time great game. Play by Play Studios does have people who worked on NBA Street. They also have worked on Battlefield and Madden, God of War, Apex Legends, Dead Space, and League of Legends. And the game is set to launch in 2025 on Steam, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S. So if you're wondering, that seems quick. Apparently, it's already been in development for 2 years. I'm hopeful. I really think there's a chance that this is a really good combination of ideas. And it will come down to feel and execution. And
we say it all the time, like it would be nice to have more arcade sports games.
Right. And this is like we say that with a lot of different stuff. And as always, these days, that is coming from a different side of gaming than like, EA, bring back EA Big and make NBA Street. And they're like, we're tired. No, we're not going to do that. And it's like, okay, well, God, I wish that would still happen. And then someone from essentially the indie side of things, which, however you define that, but clearly this is from the bottom up and not from the top down. And that's going to happen repeatedly with all of these genres. It's happened with, 3D platformers, and it's going to happen with immersive sims and all this stuff. It's going to be the solution going forward, that we can hopefully get these kinds of games from smaller teams that remember them fondly and try to recapture that stuff. And clearly the tools are getting to a point where that is more and more possible. I hope the tools get to a point where it's like we can really just focus on the design so we can get the game to feel as good as those original games, which again, I've had some bad luck with so far.
Did you or anyone on staff, I know Gersman checked it out back years ago when it was in early access, Street Uni X? Uni X. It's a Tony Hawk style game, but you're on a unicycle.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it looks like a PS1 game. It looks killer. It's very cool. It's worth checking out.
Okay.
I played a bit of it a while ago.
Well, I'm adding it to my shit right now. There we go. Okay, from Daffodil and Friends. That's a good publisher name. All right, let's keep going here. SNK versus Capcom SVC Chaos is getting a Switch physical release. This was from Nintendo Everything. The SNK versus Capcom SVC Chaos just came out on Switch yesterday, as well as other platforms, and it didn't take long to receive confirmation of a physical release. While the game won't be sold at general retail, there will be a boxed version from Pix'n Love. The company has announced a collector's edition and deluxe edition, which will be sold alongside a standard version. Details about the special edition have not been provided at this time. Pix'n Love is based in Europe, but the company does ship elsewhere. That means fans in North America should be able to get a pre-order in as well. And then there's an overview of the game and stuff like that. I know in a lot of ways, Lexi, we are already in this sort of boutique vendor era of hey, a game can get a physical version from one of these small teams, one of these small companies, and get released that way. There's something about this one specifically that feels like, this is not a beloved game, but it's an interesting artifact, I think is how Sean put it yesterday on the Bombcast. And even something like this is getting a physical release. I think this is a good sign that the industry has sort of figured out this transition from digital or from physical to digital, where it's like they know they don't want physical to go away entirely, and they know there's an audience they need to continue to serve. And it feels like that is going to happen one way or another. And here we are with a pretty good example of that. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think it came out of the UK. There was a report that came out of like, physical sales for vinyl and Blu-rays like shot up last year. So there's definitely people who, like, I think people are realizing that, like, yeah, there are people who just want physical things. They do just want it, and they'll buy a game twice. So we may as well make it so that they can buy it twice. And it's interesting how many of these places are popping up. The fact that there's like, what I can think of 4 discrete websites that do physical limited editions of games now. Like, that seems like a pretty crowded market, but sure.
Yeah, it's, and apparently for this game specifically, there's two teams doing it, because Limited Run is apparently doing a North American release. So let's see here. Yes, when worlds collide, you get chaos. Yeah, this is from Limited Run Games on Twitter. They announced this yesterday. So yeah, so this is happening with 2 teams now for different territories, and there are a lot of other teams kind of doing this, and so that will be a crowded space, as you say. But I think it shows that the demand, and I think a lot of these bigger companies that will be like, listen, we could save a lot of money by going digital only, will happily take advantage of these opportunities to have the physical version for those who care about it. And it will often be the deluxe version, like Baldur's Gate 3, where it's like, hey, it's a year later, 2 years later, here is Baldur's Gate 3 now, physical edition, but you got to pay the premium, because we know that only people who are actually going to buy this are the true freaks. And we're going to give you stuff that makes it worth it. But yeah, the next systems, the next consoles, do they have a built-in built-in disk drive? Do you think? Because I'm like, probably not, which might make this boutique stuff a little bit more challenging going forward. But I also feel like, man, I don't know, it's pennies to put that thing in there. Maybe 50 cents, $1.50. Yeah, it's worth it. I think
there'd be big pushback from publishers who are doing this now, who are finding a market here. And I also think that especially with Xbox's case and with PlayStation to a lesser extent, they have guaranteed enough backwards compatibility that there are still people who bought a lot of digital or physical games for the PS4. Like, that was how they mainly bought games for the PS4, and then they transitioned to digital for the PS5. But like, those people would still want to play those PS4 games, and they'd be pissed if they couldn't put it in somewhere, if they can put the disc in somewhere. So I think even if those aren't internal disk drives, there will definitely be ones like you saw with the Sony external disk drive there will be ways to play disc games.
Yep. All right. Last few things here. Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy reportedly could hit Game Pass on August 8th. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. Ex-Pewter writer Ecstasis, who have been on a strong recent track record of revealing upcoming Game Pass titles ahead of their official confirmation, confirmed this alongside Modern Warfare 3, which did come true. That is on Game Pass now. How are you feeling about Activision games coming to Game Pass? Kind of a slower trickle than I was expecting. Feels like bigger, splashy packages of games would go a lot further than what they're doing.
Yeah, it does. And I think I had this conversation a bit at Summer Games Fest with people. It really feels like the honeymoon period for Game Pass is over, and now it's down to like brass tacks of, okay, how do we optimize revenue on this?
That's clearly where they're at, yes.
Like, if they wanted this to be a feel-good moment, they'd bring a bunch of shit over at once, like they were doing when they were doing backwards compatible stuff. But they're not trying to make people feel good about this. They're trying to make it feel valuable. So they're doing small drip feeds so that it always feels like there's something new on your platter. Modern Warfare 3 came today onto Game Pass.
Yeah.
And now this. And I think that they are probably realizing that some of the third parties that they were relying pretty heavily on to keep Game Pass day one stuff feel important, it feels like the honeymoon period for them is over as well. You notice that with the recent Xbox showcase, they didn't have a single Japanese developer at that, and they only had one third-party game that was coming to Game Pass, and that was that turn-based RPG set in France, and Flintlock. Sorry, and Flintlock.
Yes. What was that one called? It looked great though. That third-party one.
Expedition 33. I think.
Yeah.
And so I think that like the companies like Capcom and Sega, who were seeing great returns on Game Pass, putting all the Yakuza games on there, putting Persona 3 on there, putting Kunitsugame on there, I think they are kind of realizing like, hey, people will just buy these games if we just sell them. And you know,
I'll be interested to see if Capcom returns after Kunitsugame. I mean, Capcom's returned a couple times. Sega's definitely returned a lot. Microsoft seems to be paying them the right amount of money for these things. Does that change? Does that maybe? And I think it could. At any moment, it could change for sure. And then where does that leave Game Pass? It's like, well, that's once again kind of a degraded experience, and that's maybe no reason that like no obvious reason for Microsoft other than like not offering even more money going forward. But that's just the business they've built for themselves. That's what they're going to have to do to maintain things. And if maintaining things gets more and more expensive for them, it makes the service feel like it makes less and less sense for them. What does that mean for the long term hand for this?
I think I mentioned this in chat when the first Game Pass changes were announced, but I was at CX a while ago with a friend of mine. CX is like a secondhand game store in the UK and Ireland. And we were looking at games for all the platforms because we own everything. So we were just like looking at everything in the store. And we looked at PlayStation stuff, and there were games that God of War, the first God of War reboot, was there for €30. And then we go over to the Xbox section, and Gears of War 5 is €10.
Yeah.
And in a very real sense, Game Pass has devalued its own products. Because why would you pay $60 for any of those games? Why would you pay $30 for any of those games 2 years later or 3 years later or whatever, when you could just get Game Pass?
Yep.
And so the fact that Game Pass has stopped growing and also people aren't paying full price for Xbox games at launch is super worrying for them.
Yeah,
like it has to be super worrying for them.
Right. I think like all the like hypotheticals that we put forth only sort of come to mind because of the real problem that is confirmed, and that is Game Pass isn't growing the way they need it to, and it's like so means any sort of problem is exacerbating an ongoing issue of them not being able to get the growth they need that they even expected when they started Game Pass. All right. Last just quick mention here. Stellar Blade PC port seems guaranteed based on a job listing that someone found. But that's, it's a rumor. Who knows if that's really confirmed, but I gotta imagine that game would be coming to PC. Another part of this is DLC was also hinted at. So yeah, both those things seem inevitable.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they weren't interested in bringing that to PC. It seemed like they were a small team and they chose their platform.
Right, they chose their partner. Yes, exactly, and it makes sense. All right, that does it for the news. I got a poll question that I will bring up here as soon as I close Slack because it's in the way. There we go. All right, do you feel a need to upgrade to a PS5 Pro? Sort of just taking the temperature of people right now in this moment. 88% say no, 12% say yes. And look, that is a pretty small number, but I also feel like that is the audience that you go for with a PS Pro sort of device, where it's like, hey, no, there is a 10 to 15% chunk of our audience that does feel a need to have the most the newest and shiniest thing, and I find myself in that audience very frequently, so I get that. And then two are such diehard fans that they're basically that. They're going to fund the whole thing. They spend a lot of money on PlayStation, and so they're not going to really bat an eye at either getting another PlayStation or selling their old PlayStation 5 and getting the PS5 Pro, subsidizing that purchase by sort of going to the used market.
Very simply, that's 12% more people buying another PlayStation than they would have had otherwise.
Right. It's it's extracting more money from your most diehard fans. So that 12% still easily justifies this strategy in a lot of ways. Now, I think we got it. Like it's not like, oh, and that 88% sort of just skates on and doesn't notice what's going on. Do the 88% feel a little bit more alienated because they're like, oh, you're leaving me behind when I already spent $500 on your console like just last year? That's kind of annoying. So there are ramifications to this, but I think Sony clearly thinks, well, what are you going to do? Go get an Xbox? And I think they imagine most of that 88% aren't feeling that way in the moment. So yeah, we'll see. Now, maybe I think many of them will be like, what is going on over on PC? But that is sort of happening one way. That's happening no matter what. And PlayStation's accounting for that by putting their games out on PC. Okay. Let's see here. That does it for that poll question. I have a new poll question that we will have to figure out here on the fly. But before we do that,
just poll question can be: would you play another Mario Rabbids game?
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's fair. But before you put that up there, Lexi, why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet, what you have going on, and all that good stuff?
Yes, so you can find me on Twitter at basically Lexi, both spelt with I's at the end. I am currently just after wrapping up all of my Summer Games Fest write-ups, plus a bit more. I think the next issue, or the current issue of Play Magazine that just hit store shelves, I have written a not insubstantial amount of that issue. I had something like 12 or 13 previews in that issue, so pick that up and check it out. And the cover is one of the games that I previewed. It's Astrobot, and it's a great cover, so go look for that. You can also find me on Twitch at basically Lexi as well. I'm going to keep on streaming and trying out different stuff and messing around with some PS3 games. I'm going to apply for affiliate probably this weekend, and once I've given Twitch my tax details, then I'll be able to start making some money off of it. And of course, late breaking news: there's a new Borderlands trailer.
Oh yeah, God. I don't know if I'm allowed to say anything about that movie, so I'll just say, hey, watch the trailer. Why not?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Actually, you know what? Let's do this poll question as well. We're gonna do a double poll question. Michael R. O'Leary helping us. Will you watch Michael Bay's Skibidi Toilet? I want that one as well. So, will you watch Michael Bay's Skibidi Toilet? I hope it is just titled that way as well.
Nikki wasn't here for that part of the show.
Hell
was
yeah.
quite confused.
Nikki, I was here for that show. I read the news story. I'm also confused. How did we get here? But you were right. I've been watching rugby.
Hell yeah, Nikki. I wish I could be you right now.
Call it. Well, we'll get you back over there here in a second. All right. Let's see. So yeah, those are the poll questions. Would you play another Mario plus Rabbids? And will you watch Michael Bay's Skibidi Toilet? Your options for that one are yes, no, and what are you talking about? So looking forward to the results on that. And speaking of the results, we'll get that on Game S Mornings, on Giant Bomb, on Thursday. Speaking of Giant Bomb, later today, Thank you, Grubb returns. I promise to make real proggies. We have a strategy. We're gonna get through this together, everybody. And then
I really hope that Emma Fyfe remembers to bring the chainsaw to Comic-Con to give it to Jan, who can then give it to you at some point.
She probably isn't going to remember that, but I'm gonna talk to her and just get it shipped to me. Get that fixed up. So we'll get that back in my hands.
Let's be real, the weapons in that game aren't very effective, and you could do with a chainsaw.
I could use a chainsaw, absolutely. I would love to have a chainsaw. Also, right after this, we're going to get set up. We're going to play a little Nintendo World Championships. I think if they're around, the plan is to get Dan and Mike to hang out with me while we all kind of play together, or what is it called? Body doubling, when like you do work next to someone else. We're going to be body doubling this game, where we're just going to all compete in times in our own game and try to get through that.
I thought you and Mike body doubling each other was one of your Patreon tiers.
Listen, hey, there's a lot of spicy content on there, everybody. Okay. So check that out. And then, rest of the week, voicemail dump truck, Game S Mornings will return, all that stuff. I think there's a new Jeff's happening this week. Friday, we'll have UPF. I think we're planning a BCR. So we're going to have that normal busy week. Looking forward to doing a lot of that stuff. I'm looking for places to do stuff like, hey, Would it be cool to create a giant bomb university for college football? Yes. Looking for some time to make that happen. Maybe do a small little series of that. There's other things that I want to play Kinetsugami, all these things. There's lots of stuff we're trying to get up on the website. But boy, it's hard to do that with limited resources. So we'll see what we can make happen going forward, especially when everyone's busy. Jan is at Comic-Con or on his way, along with Lucy and Tam. Everyone's heading that way. You should try to find them, say hello, go to they have a panel. I think you should go to that panel and stuff. The details, I believe, are on Twitter or maybe GameSpot's Twitter. I'm not sure. And what if we did a GB community game of pubs? Does that mean PUBG? Yes, PUBG. Yes. Yes, I would love that. That would be fantastic. We'll try to do a TNT again soon. All right, everybody. Lexi, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and talking about video games. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. And now that I have a nice new mic,
it sounds fantastic.
I have to make use of it.
Yes,
I have to make use of it. So I'm putting the call out. Invite me on your podcast, you cowards.
There you go, everybody. There you go. Get Lexi on your stuff. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. You are the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.